Dear students and my teacher friends, Namaskar. I welcome you to the presentation lecture on Goiter. Now today our topic of discussion is Goiter. So in this lecture we are going to discuss the symptoms and causes of goiter, what exactly the goiter is, and how the patients are suffering from the goiter, and what are the treatment for the goiter. Now, before we start this discussion on goiter, I would like to show you a few photographs of the goiter patient. So here you can see a goiter patient and photograph of a goiter patient, and in the neck you can see there is a enlargement. So thyroid gland is enlarged in goiter. Okay. Sure. One more goiter patient, enlarged thyroid. Goiter patient, okay. Goiter patient, and goiter patient. So now we are starting our discussion on goiter. Starting with the first point, see, goiter. See, uh, pronunciation is goiter, and we should not pronounce like goiter. Okay, it will be a wrong pronunciation, but rather we should pronounce goiter. Now, the term goiter originated the original word gutta. Gutta means throat. Okay. So what is goiter? So goiter is simply an enlarged thyroid gland. So the size of thyroid gland increases in goiter. And goiter may be associated with hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, or euthyroidism. Eu means good, and U means euthyroidism means normal secretion of thyroid hormone. Now, the reason why the goiter occur is that in some places in the world, in the diet, there is inadequate intake of iodine. So people are not getting iodine from the food, and those people who are not getting sufficient iodine in their food, they suffer from goiter. So in them, the enlarged gland in the neck, the thyroid gland enlarges, and the resultant low level of thyroid hormone in the blood stimulates secretion of TSH. So what happened? The goiter patient, in the goiter patient, there is a low level of TH hormone, and as there is a low level, because iodine is insufficient, is inadequate in the diet. So what happened? The patient is not able to produce, not able to synthesize thyroid hormone. So there is a low level of thyroid hormone in the blood, and this low level of thyroid hormone stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete more TSH. And as there is a more secretion of TSH, this TSH, the increased level of TSH causes thyroid gland to enlarge. Okay, so due to the continuous effect of TSH on thyroid gland, so thyroid gland increases in size, thyroid gland enlarges. in goiter. Now moving forward. So हाँ तुम okay. So more conspicuous, often striking abnormality of the thyroid is endemic goiter. Now, the result, why this disease why this disorder is occurring in a patient. So, it result from deficiency of dietary iodine. So, if in the food there is a less intake of iodine, so it will be a reason, it will be a cause for the goiter. Now, what happened without iodine? The gland cannot synthesize thyroid hormone, and as iodine is not there, so thyroid hormone is not synthesized, and thyroid, without thyroid, the pituitary gland receives no feedback, and pituitary gland act as if the thyroid were under stimulated. So as in the food there is no iodine, so there is no synthesis of th by thyroid gland. So pituitary gland is not receiving any feedback that how the thyroid gland is working. So now the pituitary gland produces and releases more TSH to stimulate the thyroid. So pituitary gland thinks that the thyroid gland is under stimulated. So to stimulate the thyroid gland, pituitary gland secrete more and more TSH hormone. Okay, so now as pituitary gland is trying to stimulate the thyroid gland, it more strongly the pituitary secrete extra amount of TSH, and this extra TSH this extra TSH makes the thyroid produce more and more colloid. Okay, so now what is happening in the food? There is absent of iodine, dietary iodine is not there, so thyroid gland cannot synthesize th. Now in the blood low level of th, so what will happen? Pituitary gland is not receiving any feedback, so pituitary gland is trying to stimulate the thyroid gland strongly. So in that, pituitary gland is secreting extra amount of tsh, and is stimulating this extra tsh is stimulating the thyroid gland. So now thyroid gland is producing more and more colloid, which is thyroglobulin. Okay, now in the thyroid gland there is a accumulation of colloid, because this thyroglobulin cannot be iodinated. That means the colloid cannot combine with the iodine, and there is a no formation of th. So this colloid is accumulated in the thyroid gland. So, due to the accumulation of colloid in the thyroid gland, often there is a swelling in the neck. So, the thyroid gland swell, thyroid gland enlarge in size. Okay. So, this is the exact cause, this is the exact reason why the goiter is occurring in the patient. Now the word endemic refers to the occurrence of a disease in a defined geographical locality. So when we use the word endemic, the meaning of endemic, that a disease is occurring in a particular area of the world. Okay, so in a particular geographical area, particular locality is affected by the disease, so that means the word endemic is used. Now Now, endemic goiter was very common in the Midwestern United States. Okay, and this region, Midwestern United States, where more and more people were suffering from goiter, this region was known as the goiter belt. Because now why so many people of Midwestern United States suffer from goiter? The reason is iodine poor soil. So there is no iodine in the soil. Then then people were eating the seafood, but they were not getting sufficient iodine from the seafood also. So little access to iodine rich seafood. So this was the reason why the Midwestern United States people suffer from goiter. Now it has become almost non-existent in developed countries. So nowadays there are only few cases uh, of goiter are observed in the developed countries, because because now nowadays what happened, the developed countries, they have started to add additional iodine to the table salt. So the food industries are mixing more and more iodine to the edible salt, that is the table salt. Okay, then additional iodine is also mixed with the animal feed, and iodine is also mixed with the fertilizer. Okay, so now there are very less cases of the goiter. Now, goiter now occurs most often in localities that have neither this benefit. That means, uh, nowadays goiter is only visible in the area where the food industries are not mixing the iodine with the food item. Okay, and these regions where you will find the goiter patient are, one is Central Africa. Then you will find goiter patient in the mountainous region of the South America. And now goiter patient you will find in, nowadays you will find in Central Asia and also in Indonesia. And as far as the developed countries are concerned, so they have mixed iodine with all their food items, for example the table salt, animal feed, and the fertilizer. so so there are very few cases of goiter in developed countries. Okay, so let me show you all the information. Okay, now here, refers to enlargement of thyroid. So the size of thyroid gland increases in goiter. Now, typically due to an insufficient amount of dietary iodine. So in the food, there is uh, a scarcity of iodine. Okay, inadequate iodine is present in the food. Now, although although the pituitary releases more TSH in effort to stimulate thyroid, the lack of dietary iodine prevents the thyroid from producing the needed T, TH. Okay, so what is actually happen in goiter, that pituitary is releasing more and more TSH. Now pituitary gland wants to stimulate thyroid gland. So in that pituitary is releasing more TSH to stimulate the thyroid gland. Okay, but but As iodine is absent, so thyroid gland is not able to synthesize the TH hormone. So now the long-term consequences of the excessive TSH. So pituitary gland for a longer period of time, if continue to secrete TSH, so this TSH is going to continually affect the thyroid gland. So now there will be overgrowth of thyroid follicle in the thyroid gland due to the stimulation by TSH. And thyroid gland is also stimulated, so the size of thyroid gland is also going to increase, and there is a overgrowth of thyroid follicle due to the TSH stimulation. Now, goiter was, as I told you earlier, that goiter was relatively common deformity, a common disorder in the United States until the food processing industry has begun adding iodine. So before the food processing industries were adding the iodine into the table salt, before that, many people of United States suffer from the goiter disorder. Okay. Now, nowadays, goiter is still occur in part of the world where iodine is lacking in the diet. So, people who are consuming the food without the iodine, those people are also nowadays suffering from the goiter, and such is referred to as endemic goiter. And this case, this cases of goiter are known as the endemic goiter. Endemic means the, as I told you earlier, endemic means a disease or the disorder of a particular geographical area. Now, unfortunately, goiters do not readily regress once iodine is restored to the diet. That means, once the thyroid gland, the size of the thyroid gland is enlarged, so even if the patient is administered with iodine, so if once the patient is suffering from goiter and the thyroid gland has increased in size, so after that, even if we are giving the food which is having iodine to the patient, so there are very less chance that the thyroid gland is going to decrease in size, because it is a very slow process. Okay, so that's why the only cure for the goiter patient is to surgically remove the thyroid gland. Okay, so that this is the one treatment that is given, that to surgically remove the thyroid gland. Okay, so let me show you this. Now here, a final sign of hyperthyroidism is enlargement of the thyroid gland, known as goiter. Yeah. So with this, we have completed our discussion on goiter. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture on goiter, and I also hope that this lecture will be helpful in your exam preparation and also in your studies. My name is Manish Kosti sir. I am from Ahmedabad, India. Bye bye. Namaste.